welcome back, everyone. We're back with the lions. The one lioness has got up and started to move. She looks to be the one that is lactating. So the other three are still lying behind us. I just thought we'd try and follow her and see where she goes. She might cross back across the boundary. She might be heading back to feed the cubs. Or she's going to lie in the same pile of hippo dung that they were in earlier. She really likes that pile of hippo dung. So hopefully she's going to start rolling. But there we go. Oh, hippo dung. So nice. Oh, and the other lioness is with us here now as well. So I'm sure the boys will be following shortly. Hi, Cindy from Sacramento. Welcome on the Sunrise Safari. Cindy would like to know whether they look pregnant or about to give birth. Well, Cindy, this one lying in front of us here has actually given birth probably about a month and a half ago now, maybe even as long as 2 months. She had 3 cubs that are being stashed in a drainage line to the south of us. But the other lioness at the moment, I did hear, I think she was mating, or is about, sorry, not was mating, is about to start mating. That's why these 2 males are following them around so actively. So we're going to stay with the girls right now, because if she is coming into estrus, wherever the girls go, the boys will follow. Hi, Thelma from Michigan. Welcome on Sunrise Safari. Thelma is a bit worried about the cubs. She's saying that why isn't the mother with the cubs? It doesn't look like she's hunting right now. How long will she leave the cubs for? Well, Thelma, lions have been known to leave cubs for up to a week sometimes, but it's normally about 2 to 3 days at the most. And they are heading towards our boundary. Sorry, I'm just trying to get a gap through here. So that is normal lion behavior. They will leave cubs for up to a week, but it's normally 2 to 3 days. So don't worry, Thelma, that is normal lion behavior to leave the cubs by themselves. I just want to get up ahead. This is our southern boundary coming up, so there's a very strong possibility they're going to cross, and she is keeping the cubs to the south of us here.
Okay, yeah, Opie is there now. I'm just very close to you guys. I was trying to call you. Who is there with you? WildEarth?
Just hang on, guys. I need to just call on the radio quickly.
Yeah, you can wait only from the house.
From the house?
You just need to get a chance to chat on the radio quickly.
I saw the jungle pigeon. They said they're moving.
Where's the second lioness now? She was around. I think she's up now. Here she comes. Hi, Morning, Georgina from Illinois. Georgina would like to know, how tall is the biggest male at the shoulder? Well, Georgina, the male's probably about 1.2 to 1.3 meters at the shoulder. Sorry guys, there's a bit of a rush of vehicles in here to come try see these lions before they cross our boundary. Morning, Tex. So, just trying. He's lost sight of the goal, so he's actually moving back into our area, but I'm sure he'll pick up their scent shortly. But we're just going to stand by here on the edge, let the other guys get a chance to see them. We've spent quite a bit of time with them. We will go back to them. Let's just try to see where those, if we can still see any of the lionesses behind us. We're just going to let these other vehicles get a chance to have a look at them. Is almost directly in that area. So it is likely that she is heading back towards them. And with a small pride like they are, with only 2 females, it is likely that the other female has already met the cubs. So see, we might get another nice view. Another gap through the trees. That has actually got a stunning shot. Disappearing lion. The other lioness is actually, when she disappears, she's a bit closer to us, hiding behind the gory bush. There she disappears there. I think if we go backwards a little bit, we'll get a nice view of her. Maybe not. She's just really utilizing those quarry bushes. So, as you can see, quite busy, lots of people in and out. I'm just going to move my vehicle because I'm causing a traffic jam in the middle of the road here. It looks like the males have come to us. We haven't moved. And they've crossed the road. One of them has at least. And I'm sure the other will be following suit quite shortly. Move so Brian can show you now. He's definitely on the track of those females. So we're going to move around. The other male's probably sleeping. He doesn't seem as interested in actively following those girls as this male. So he's disappearing now. And we're going to have to do the same as we're doing now. Just watching through the gaps in the quarries. So it's getting quite nice and warm. So maybe that's the female's trick. They start moving when it's warm, and the males get lazy and they manage to get away, but I'm pretty sure that other male's still sleeping behind somewhere, but he'll probably jump up shortly. So I'm just listening to the radio for a second. warming up nicely, losing a few layers. We're just waiting to see what happens where that male moves to. So the way the males are behaving, it's quite probable that one of those females is going to go into estrus quite shortly. And there he is, he's popped up again. But I think that's probably one of the last views we're going to get of him. We can just see his tail. There we go, he pops out other than the long grass. So these lines have crossed over our boundary. He's busy sniffing around trying to find the ladies who have managed to evade him, and they've gone straight south. And there he goes, he's going to disappear into some thick bush shortly. Alright, turning around. So there we go, he's now, it looks like he's found the right trail to where those ladies disappeared. So we're going to cross across to James, see what he's been up to. I'm going to stand by in this area in case they change direction again, but I think they're pretty much headed off now down to the south of us. But that was really exciting, really glad we actually got to find them. And so we're going to cross over to James for a bit, and we'll see you a bit later in drive.
Welcome back to Wendy, everyone. I hope you've had a great time with Brent and the lions. Sounds like a fantastic sighting to have had. Andrew and I have been wandering around the reserve, exploring, and it's been while there hasn't been a huge amount of big game, we have a sensory overload. You saw the termites we had. The smell of the bush this morning is spectacular, and just the feel of picking the leaves and listening to the sounds has been exceptional. One of the best sounds we've heard today has been that of something called a bearded woodpecker, which is more probably along the lines of the woodpeckers you get up in North America. He's about that big. And he makes it sound in the morning. He taps on an empty, normally a hollow leadwood log. He'll go and sit on a hollow leadwood tree and he'll tap. Da, 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 da. And that's his territorial tap. And so he's not looking for food when he does that. He's trying to tell all the other woodpeckers in the area, stay out. And we've just seen one with a beautiful red head, and he was feeding on the bottom of an acacia tree. Unfortunately, there wasn't any signal at the time, so we couldn't show it to you. So we're going to continue on our way. The leopard tracks that we were following disappeared, I'm afraid, west onto the next door property. So we've come back east, and we're going to continue looking for whatever we can find. At the moment, we're not on any specific tracks, but there's no doubt there'll be something fascinating to look at soon. Got a question from Maggie in Kansas. Maggie, nice to have you with us, and thank you for your question. Maggie wants to know, other than protecting the queen and housing her and feeding her, what role do termites play in the bush? Well, Maggie, without termites, the bush would be a very different place indeed. They reckon that the termite biomass, so the number of termites and their total mass, is more than that of all the major herbivores. So you can imagine, if they weren't around to clean up the dead wood and the dead grass, and to process it through their guts and fertilize the soil with their droppings, the nutrient content of the soil would be far less. There'd be a huge amount of dead wood all over the place, and that's quite apart from the food source that they provide to people, birds, and various other animals that like to eat them. So they play a hugely important role. And the termites that we see in the big mounds are called the fungus-growing termites, but they're just one of hundreds of termite species, most of which don't build mounds, and so they operate sort of under the radar. So in very short, Maggie, termites are probably one of the most important parts of any reserve's ecology. Got a question from Andre in Florida, who hasn't seen me before, and Andre, I haven't seen you before either, so welcome. It's very good to have you with us. We'd like a little background on me. Well, I was born in South Africa, in Johannesburg, and I spent most of my life there until I left home, and then I went and did a degree in wildlife science. And after that, I came to the bush, where I've worked as a guide and as a guide trainer for the last 10 or so years. And I started here about 3 days ago. I have worked quite extensively in other parts of the Sabi Sands, and then at a place called Ngala, just north of here, which is about 15,000 hectares of the Greater Kruger National Park. I hope that answers your question, Andre. Go back here. On this tree here, you can see the bark of the tree has been scuffed and taken away. And that, we spent quite a lot of time with some buffalo last night. And they, if you look at the top of their heads, the keratin on the boss is often red in color. And it's got sort of marks of red and is gouged out with red patches, and that often comes from the tannins in the bark of these acacia trees. This particular acacia tree, I don't know if anybody wants to hazard a guess at what it is, but it's quite a favorite of theirs because it leaves the mark, and this is sort of how they will often come and bash a tree like this, to either scratch the horns or to show a bit of dominance. It's unusually not really a territorial display like it would be in, say, Impala, because buffalo aren't generally territorial. But it's just a nice link to those buffalo we saw last night with the red divots, if you like, and scratches on the top of their horns. This is where they get that redness from. It's the tannin in the acacia tree and in the bark. This tree won't be harmed by this because it's still got vascular tissue going up to the leaves and then back down from them. Anyone want to hazard a guess at which acacia it is? Maybe we can get a proper picture of some of the leaves, Andrew, if you don't mind. So your clue is that it is an acacia, and one of the words in the English name is a primate. One of the words in the English name is a primate. Nasty hooked thorns that only something like a giraffe would be able to deal with. giraffe's tongue. I mean, imagine wrapping your tongue around one of those thorns. Wouldn't be speaking for some time. Right, on we go. Have a comment from Georgianne in Illinois. Every morning before we go out, and indeed every afternoon, we do sound check on the microphones so that we can make sure that when we find little gems in this glorious wilderness, we can tell you about them and you'll be able to hear us. So this morning I was singing into my microphone, not realizing that at the dam we were, there is a microphone. Georgianne managed to hear that, poor woman. It was a very rude sort of awakening. She says that I have a pleasant voice. Thank you, Georgianne. It's very kind of you. I'm going to have a look at this tree here, if you don't mind, Andrew. Another acacia tree, the name of which you can guess from the redness. I don't know if you can see that redness there. Yeah, that broken piece. This is Acacia girardii, or the red thorn. And we spoke about the termites and how much wood they eat. Elephants are obviously the keystone herbivore in the area. They're the ones that do the most damage. And this tree has been broken at least 3 or 4 times by elephants coming past, pulling it down, eating the leaves, and it survives. They're remarkably resilient, most of the trees around here, to the ravages of elephants, because that's how they've evolved together. If they hadn't evolved that ability, they just wouldn't survive. But just to give you an idea, elephants will certainly change the structure of a vegetation type, so they'll knock down some of the bigger trees, but they don't have anything like the impact in terms of biomass consumption that the termites do. The termites even eat the elephant dung. Particularly like the acacias, this is the elephants, because they tend to have a fairly rich tree gum, which is very nutritious. Starting to get a bit warmer now. It's always amazing in winter how long it takes the sun to actually heat us up. Andrew was wrapped up a bit like a Michelin man this morning, and he's just managed to take his gloves off. And the sun comes up and only starts to sort of warm the area around 8 o'clock. And I think it must be plus minus around that time now. I'm not really sure. It's really nice not to have to know in these parts. Yet again, I'm astonished by the knowledge that some of our viewers have. Janet in Baltimore has almost correctly identified that first acacia. It is called a black monkey thorn, Acacia burkii. Well done, Janet. We'll get to it now. And these, like this one here, just above us. I'm just going to stop here. I mean, it's not a particularly impressive version of the marula tree, but the marula fruit comes in great abundance in February time, and people certainly still in the rural areas have a celebration around that time of the year. And those are the major fruits that we get here. Then some of the other bushes, like the white berry bush, there's actually one just over there. That's a sort of scraggly thing. That's it there, Andrew, in the middle of the picture. That's Flugia verosa. If you just, not the one on the right, the sort of scraggly bushy on the ground, that's it there. Flugia verosa is called a white berry bush, and that makes some nice white fruits. Normally around, probably
winter time. Sing, killy shit.
The guarri bush, of course, which makes those very sort of deep red berries. Not a particularly great source of nutrition, but not bad. And then the only other one I can think of that produces a substantial amount of fruit is something called a sour plum, and they're a bit like the opposite of a sour worm. I'm not sure if you've ever eaten one of those sour worms or sour sweets that you eat, and they're terribly tart to start with, and then they go sweet. The sour plum does precisely the opposite. You eat the sour plum and it's very sweet, and then suddenly it hits you with a sort of lemony taste. And those are the major fruits. Then in terms of vegetables, not a huge amount. I mean, we do get tubers, but not many that are edible. Certainly in the Kalahari, there is something called a Djuma melon, which the sand bushman people have learned to cope with, but it's really pretty disgusting. So as I said earlier, unless you're able to hunt out here, it would be very difficult to survive. You can see a few more marula trees here. They're normally the tall ones that you can see on the crests. And it's only the females that produce fruit, which is quite interesting. Just had a question from Yvonne in New Jersey, who would like to know if I am the James who wrote the books. I'm sure there are many Jameses that have written books before. I am one of them, and if you'd like to have a look at them, you can find them on the British Amazon site. The first one is Whatever You Do, Don't Run, which is a collection of non-fiction stories about rangers and guides, and the second one is one called A Year in the Wild, which is a comedy book about living in a 5-star game lodge, and the third one is a follow-up to A Year in the Wild. It's called Back to the Bush, Another Year in the Wild, and the two stories focus on two brothers who live in an environment exactly like the one you can see around you, but in a 5-star game lodge, and it's all about the wonder of the wilderness and all the shenanigans that go on in the background at any sort of lodge or hotel environment. So best you all rush out and buy them, so that I may buy some peanut butter to eat next month. I don't wish to be reduced to eating termites. try and get a view over this clearing here on my left. And you see if you can pick up wide of the termite mounds. When we know this area has been slightly artificially cleared, so that's why it's more open. But the advantage of it is you can see how many termite mounds there are. Normally, if the vegetation is at its sort of natural height, you don't see the termite mounds or the number of them because they're covered in vegetation. But here you can see, I mean, there are at least 30 from where I'm sitting. You probably can't see that many where you are, but in a tiny space of tiny area. And that's just the macrotermes, the ones that live above the ground in the mounds. And then there'll be odontotermes and hodontotermes who live in the trees, who make their mobile burrows, if you like. And these termite mounds will go a long way under the ground. So what you can see of them here is a very small proportion of their actual size. So you can imagine how many millions of termites there are scurrying about just in the picture that you can see. Spot batis. Two of them. I don't think we're going to be able to get a camera on them for long enough. No. Oh, I don't know, we might. Andrew, can you see him in there?
I don't know if I have the two spot batis, but I have one bird.
There. You've got, there's the batis went down to the right. You've got a southern black tit there. They're often an indicator of a bird party, so they're quite often there. It's quite a nice sighting of the southern black tit. They're often an indicator of a sort of bird party, which is a group of different species of birds that are feeding in the same area. That's a really nice sighting of one of those birds. The southern black tit. Glorious sounds of the bush now. The dawn chorus is over and we've moved into the sort of more middle of the day sort of sounds. Crested barbets calling. Ooh. Where was that from there?
That was a strange sight. Those hillies down
It's
there.
elephants. Yeah, we've got some elephants. We're just going to move in there. Oh, there we go. That's fantastic. Alright, let's go and have a look at the elephants. My first mammal for the day. It's quite exciting. Just going to approach nice and slowly, so that we don't disturb them too much. I'm saying them, I've only seen one, but the size of the one that I've seen would indicate that there are probably others. I have at least two there. Another one up front there, 2 or 3 off to that side, oh, and some others over there. So this is quite a large herd that's spread out. Focus on this little group here in front of us. He's just a little bit nervous of us. That's why he turned like that. But now he's gaining some more confidence. Going to move a little bit forward to try and get around the front so we can get a view of the face, tusks. Find with elephants is that after a while they will start to develop a sense of confidence and comfort with a vehicle or with a specific person even. I know some people who for some reason make elephants feel uncomfortable. They don't know why, and some just have a rapport with them like Mark used to. Often people watch elephants feeding and think that they're just indiscriminately picking any piece of vegetation they can find. But they're actually normally being very selective about what they take, using an amazing prehensile tip to the trunk. Flapping of the ears is often mistaken as a sign of irritation or of anger. And yes, elephants do hold their ears out when they're angry, but that flapping is often when the heat starts to build. There is an incredible network of veins and arteries in the ear, and when they flap their ears like that, they cool the blood. And that blood normally goes directly to the brain, which is obviously the most important organ to keep cool. So they flap and cool the blood, and off it goes to the brain. It's absolutely incredible how an animal that size can move with such incredible silence. Going to wait here and see if he doesn't come out into the open. That little piece of tree that he ate is something called Ormocarpum tripocarpum, or the caterpillar bush. And it's interesting, they're pretty big trees outside of game reserves, but here, as you can see, they're quite a delicacy for the elephant, and they don't often get much more than 2 or 3 feet off the ground. he's picking sedges, which contain a bit more moisture than the grass does. He's scratching his ear. Question from Anna Marie. Thank you for your question, Anna Marie. I'm not sure I know the answer entirely. You've asked how many chambers does an elephant's heart have. I'm guessing that it has, like most mammalian hearts, probably only has 4 chambers, but I'm not sure. We'll try and have a look and see if we can find out for you. I'm just going to move forward a bit. Obviously each stick with this bull because he's a young bull, and they often quite like to interact with the vehicle, either just through looking at us or coming a little bit closer and seeing what we want. The cows generally tend to either treat us with disdain or leave, but these young bulls and the young cows are much more sort of confiding. They're much more curious. He's picking little acacia seedlings now off the ground. Marianne, we've just confirmed, this is the wonder of technology, that the elephant does indeed have 4 chambers hearts. I think probably most mammals do. He's eating seedlings of something called Peltophorum africanum, or the weeping wattle. I think that's a young leadwood that just disappeared down his throat. It's incredible how dexterous his trunk is and his foot, and how I'm sure he can hardly see what he's doing. He's doing it largely by feel. This is probably a 12 to 15-year-old elephant. I'm sure you wouldn't have heard this picked up, but just in front of this young bull are some others. I think the matriarch is probably amongst them, and she made a low rumbling noise, and they make sounds like that which are often too low for us to even hear. And suddenly all of those elephants in that group went quiet, and they looked up and looked at us.
This one only has one tusk.
The elephant coming out of the bush there, Andrew's just pointed out, has only one tusk, which is not always that unusual. Sometimes elephants are a bit like us, right or left-handed. Elephants can be right or left-tusked, and so if they use the tusk for too long or too much, they can snap one of them off, which must be extremely painful. I have a question from Gilly in Wisconsin. Welcome to our beautiful elephant sighting, Gilly. I'm not reading it that clearly, but I think what you're asking is about either the texture of the skin, if I'm not mistaken, or the texture of the foot. I'll just look at them interacting there. Right. Okay, so it is indeed the foot. It's the foot that you wanted to know about, Gilly. The foot is, if you've I have felt the foot of a dead elephant before. They feel a lot softer than you think they would, but underneath them is a very hard callus of skin, much like you would develop if you walked around without shoes on. And they have a callus that will take thorns, and the thorns will slough out of them, and I think that skin is replaced quite a lot, but they certainly don't feel hard to the touch. They feel quite soft, and that's evidenced by how softly they're able to walk. But there is a pad of callus on the bottom that stops injuries occurring. I'm just going to shift forward slightly. These are two young bulls. I said the one was probably 12 to 15. The other one's probably between 10 and 12, the little one. And you see how the little bulls, just like little boys or teenage boys, will try and spend a bit of time away from the herd and the family. I'm going to move on now to the rest of the family, or the rest of the herd, as they come out of the bush. And here, there's younger animals, and probably the adult cows. Two of them playing with each other, just like human kids might. David in Chicago, welcome to the sighting. You'd like to know, what are the tusks used for other than defense? Look at those two. The tusks are used for defense for some elephants, but they're actually largely a tool for scraping bark off trees, and they use them to dig in the sand sometimes. That is a dominance display we're seeing there. Those elephants are far too young to be mating. That's quite interesting to see. They're likely to get it hiding from their parents. They're not very careful. So the tusks are used for feeding, for digging. Yes, they will be used for defense, but it's mainly to source food. So if you've ever seen a marula tree that's been hammered by elephants, they use the tusks to peel off the bark, or to certainly start the bark peeling process. Now you can see quite nicely behind you can see the two youngsters there, and one of them is clearly a little bit smaller than the other and is streaming from the gland behind its eyes, whereas the bigger one is not. And that is a sign of stress. It can be a sign of heat stress, it can be a sign of emotional stress. I mean, in this case, I suspect it's some form of emotional stress from the bullying she's receiving. Big cow behind us. Oh, and she's had half her trunk removed. Look at that. That's not very nice to see. Shame. She's had a piece of her trunk removed somehow. She may have got it caught in a snare at some stage of her life. I'm just going to stop speaking while these elephants come past, because they often react to our voices. And it's really nice when they don't. Oh, that's spectacular. They're just listening for what their mother says. They're waiting for her to rumble at them. There, did you hear that? I'm not sure if you heard that. That classic elephant pose of the tail out, meaning leave me alone. Katrina wants to know, hi Katrina, and welcome to the beautiful elephant sighting. You'd like to know if elephants are ever born without tusks. Yes, well, all elephants are born without tusks, much like we're born without our teeth. But some elephants, very few, but some don't ever develop tusks, especially cows. It's not usual, but it does happen. And in the Indian elephant, of course, the cows don't have tusks at all. Only the bulls have them. Now let's just focus on this elephant here to the right. She's lost, say, the bottom 20% of her trunk. So that prehensile tip is no longer there. I'm not sure how she would have lost it, but I've just been watching her feed, and she's still, it's obviously less efficient than before, but rather like somebody who's lost a limb, she's compensated and manages to use what she has left to grab the vegetation she wants to eat. Just had some information from our regular viewers that this elephant has been seen quite regularly in the past. So she's obviously been around for a while and is surviving quite well. Go back here. Claire in Johannesburg, my old hometown. Welcome. I'm sure you're very jealous of me sitting where I am compared with where you are. I think you were asking, are elephants the only other mammals with a chin? I haven't heard that before, but let's go and find those young bulls again. They're in here somewhere, and we'll see if we can have a look. The elephant jawbone is certainly not substantially different from any other herbivore's jawbone in terms of its overall structure. So I'm not really sure that I could say the elephant has a chin any more than say a giraffe does. But I'd be fascinated to know where that information came from, and if I'm perhaps not defining a chin correctly. So, Claire, the thing to do here would be to wait until he lifts his mouth. There you can see. Yeah, no, look. Unless I'm mistaking the definition of a chin, I would say from most of the other mammals, the jawbone is definitely the same sort of shape. In fact, the jawbone is almost the same shape as ours. Talking to each other, just low grumbles. They used to think those grumbles came from the stomach, but they don't. They do come from the larynx. The larynx is obviously just much bigger than ours, and the bigger your larynx is, the deeper the sound you can make. One almost feels slightly rejected that he didn't want to hang around with us for a bit longer. But at the same time, it's so great when they're totally unaffected by our presence. Right, let's leave these two bulls. There are another two further down, bigger animals. Let's see what they're doing. Just in front of me there. I'm going to drive quite slowly down there, simply because the slower we move and the more quietly we allow the engine to run, the less likely they are to react to us. Parlour in the background as well. So now this young bull's trying to show us who's boss by shaking his head. He's doing it in an entirely unconvincing way though. Throwing dust on himself to sort of help with the ectoparasites. On that they face almost directly downward. No, it's a young bull. Digging up the sort of soft sand in this area with his foot and then picking it up and tossing it on his back. That'll help get rid of parasites, like I say. Also cool the skin slightly. Janet in Boston has an interesting question. She's asked me what is the difference between a mammal and an animal? Often people talk about animals and they mean mammals. Animal strictly refers to anything that comes from the animal kingdom. And there are 5 classes in the animal kingdom, which include the mammals, the birds, the reptiles, the amphibians, and the fish. All of which would be, sorry, a lot more than that. There are two phyla in the animal kingdom, the invertebrates and the vertebrates, and it's any form, so that would include anything from a mammal, a bird, a reptile, an amphibian, a fish, and then all the invertebrates like bees and flies and wasps and moths and caterpillars and any other form of invertebrate, octopus, crabs, anything that basically moves on its own is known as an animal. A mammal, of course, is what we are and what impala are. 5 young, in all cases bar one, and I wonder if you could tell me what that is. They all have some form of hair on their bodies. So if you look at these elephants, the most obvious place that they have hair, of course, is on their tails. But they do, especially when they're young, they're born with a sort of light fuzz throughout the whole body. And the other thing they do is they suckle their young. All mammals will suckle their young. So an animal, strictly, Janet, is any form of organism that is able to sort of move on its own 2 feet, or 3 feet, or 6 feet, and even some that aren't. A sponge is also apparently an animal. Feed on its own. Going to reposition ourselves slightly. Lynn from Michigan, welcome to the sighting and thanks for your question. Lynn would like to know, have I ever had an elephant come too close to me or charge me? The answer, the Kruger Park area had an experience with elephants who have charged with a genuine seriousness. Mostly those are traumatized animals. So in the Kruger National Park they used to cull elephants until about 1996, and it took a very long time for the elephants to trust vehicles and trust people again. They certainly used to be a lot more antsy than they are now, and when I started guiding in 2000, this elephant sighting wouldn't have presented much of a problem, but many others you'd only go into in reverse so that you could get out quickly. But as time has gone by, so these animals have just come to trust us again, because there was a moratorium put on the culling, and so the chances of being attacked or charged by an elephant are that much smaller. Also, elephants very seldom, unless they are severely traumatized, will just charge without a warning. So if you surprise them, they might, but normally they'll shake their heads, trumpet, and if you read their body language carefully, you can tell if they're going to if they're going to become aggressive. It's normally pretty safe. I'm just going to go around the other side. I mean, that said, you can misinterpret the behavior and it's quite easy to make mistakes, but with sufficient observation you should be fine. The sun is not great for this angle. I'm just going to have a look at this little one for a while. This little one is, I mean, he's very dexterous with his trunk already, but the young elephants take probably up to 2 years to learn to use their trunks properly. There are over 1,000 muscle and nerve fibers in that trunk. And it just, when they're born, the trunks just flop around in a sort of useless appendage. A question from Orkney. When would elephants stop giving birth? The cows, I presume you mean. Well, as with most of the mammal kingdom, or most of the not mammal kingdom, mammal phylum, if you like, or mammal class. Sorry, I'm getting my taxonomy mixed up here. We're one of the only ones where we will live beyond breeding age. So an elephant cow will certainly, there is an advantage to having age in an elephant herd because of the knowledge that is retained by elephants and where the water is and that sort of thing. So there certainly seems to be some sort of information passed on. And so they will live slightly beyond breeding age. Elephants in this area probably live to about 55 years. And so I would say the cows probably for the last 5 or 10 years of their lives are not giving birth. But in just about all other animals, so for example lions or impala, once breeding age or once breeding ceases, they die almost immediately because they don't have that necessity to pass on information. So in some of the primate species like us, for example, we live well beyond breeding age, and that's because of the information retention that there is in generations that are older. We're going to just spend a bit more time with these elephants, but while I reposition the vehicle, we're going to go off to Brent and see how he's doing.
Welcome back, everyone. It's been such a fantastic morning. We're sitting here on our northern boundary at the moment, just checking what could have possibly come down this long straight road. But I'm just going to say cheers and goodbye now. We've had such a fantastic morning, and I know James is with those Ellies. For those of you who might have signed in a bit late, we did a lot of tracking early in the morning, and we were unlucky. The trucks just kept evading us and heading off our property. But we were lucky enough to bump into those 2 Matimba males and the 2 Styx lionesses, and we spent some really nice quality time and wonderful light with them. And I know James has got some great eddies, so we're going to say goodbye, and hopefully we'll catch you all on the sunset safari. Really excited. Hopefully we can find some leopards, and we will definitely try our best. So from Brian and myself, have a wonderful rest of your day or morning or evening wherever you are in the world, and we'll see you on the sunset safari.
Welcome back, everyone. I haven't parked in a particularly great position to see the elephants now, but there's a young one just less than 10 meters from us now, and he's not reacting to our presence at all. So while you can't see him that well, it's such an incredible privilege to be sitting this close to one of nature's greatest wonders. I can see into his eyes. Burgundy red eyes. scratching his ear. Now he's listening to my voice. Isn't that special? Oh, that's wonderful. Here we go. It's a little one charging us from behind, a tiny little thing. And now it's got it right. Just have to be a little bit careful now. Look at this one. As I was saying, look at the trunk. Was that not the most spectacular experience? There's still some more coming from behind us. But you can see how those first elephants headed off in exactly that same direction. Oh, look at this little one here in front of us now. He's trying to decide how big and tough he really is. And he's decided not very, just yet. You'll get there, fella. That's it. So you can see he makes his charge, and then when we don't react, he pretends he's been actually looking for food. He's not really attacking us. He's got very unusual skin, that one. The big cow in front of us now is just comforting the little one. And she's probably calling. There's another small one behind us here. And she's probably going to wait for that one and make sure that we don't pose any form of threat. So as I was saying, they wander off down in the same direction. They're not in visual contact now with those first ones with that elephant that had the trunk that was missing. They're not in visual contact with them anymore, but the infrasonic rumbles that they make will travel across huge spaces, and they'll stay in audio contact. This is
I don't know which way to point the camera.
right next to us here. Slightly older cow. Well, I mean, not older compared to what we've seen. So we've got 2 minutes left on this morning safari. We're going to just stay right where we are because I don't want to start the engine while these elephants are so relaxed around us. It's just such an immense privilege. I hope you've enjoyed them and everything else we've discovered today. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for all the questions. Thank you for the comments. And mostly thank you for your time. I hope you've enjoyed Africa this morning. And we'll see you again this afternoon. So it's a goodbye from Andrew and me, and the control room of Tara and Will and Eugene, and I'm sure Brent and Brian have said goodbye to you. We'll see you in the afternoon. And for the last little while, just enjoy the spectacular out.